tries to cover up the act, et cetera. So that's kind of how those go. And I've seen in my career increasingly, and I used to be in juvie as a prosecutor, that the courts are more inclined to try these kids as adults. And I shouldn't say kids, but he's 14, now 16. He's a juvenile.
Well, with that kind of crime, I would think you have no choice almost. I mean, it's
true.
killing.
It's true.
And it's not robbery,
yeah, and
it's
no, and I had a federal grant for violent juvenile offenders when I was a prosecutor, and I did a lot of juvenile murder cases. My youngest, I think, was 14 or 13. And, I had juveniles that killed someone over a six-pack of beer. I had juveniles that killed people for no reason. I had all kinds of cases. And I had one that killed a grandfather with garden tools at age 15 and went to the mall and bought Pop-Tarts and cigarettes with the money she got from his body. They're terrible cases. And this one is really terrible.
Yeah, and you would hope for one thing at least, if other teenagers happen to put on the news, and we don't know if that happens all the time with teenagers,
right, exactly,
14,
right.
But and they see that, hey, look, this kid is being charged with murder. I mean, there's no, if I had any thought of doing such a terrible, terrible thing, I would not in any shape or form now that I see what the result could be. I would not want to spend any, you know what I mean?
Right.
So we'll definitely.
That's one of the reasons when you look at purposes of sentencing, there's, of course, retribution and rehabilitation and restitution, but a big one is the big D, deterrence. And you want to deter others from doing anything even remotely like what this juvenile has done.
No question about it, and I think he'll be guilty when it's all said and done.
Absolutely.
Right.
I agree.
It's a hard one to defend. Jerry Sandusky's been in the news lately. He did get his pension back. Here's the story behind that. We'll talk on the other side.
New details in a bizarre...
Okay, wrong clip. Here we go. Jerry Sandusky.
A Pennsylvania court ordered the state government to restore the pension of former Penn State assistant football coach Jerry Sandusky 3 years after it was taken away. The State Employees Retirement Board wrongly concluded Sandusky was a Penn State employee when he committed the crimes for which he was sentenced. The Commonwealth Court ruled unanimously on Thursday, saying the board therefore had no right to forfeit his pension. The pension was taken away when Sandusky was sentenced to 30 to 60 years in prison for sexually abusing 10 boys.
Okay, we all don't like Jerry Sandusky, but the law is the law. And Bremner, can you please tell the audience why Sandusky is getting his pension back? It's not like he's a good soldier.
No, he's not. And you hit the nail on the head. The law is the law. And what the law says is that the only ability to revoke his pension would come, basically the test were these crimes related to his employment? And because your pension is related to your employment, that's how you get it. And what they said was that these incidents, these crimes, were not tied really to his employment, tied to his pension. And so there's no ability for anybody to take that away if it falls outside of the crimes themselves. And so that's why they unanimously said, and they quoted the exact language, which talked about that the crimes, the claim crimes, or the criminal convictions are tied to his employment or his employment status that gave him the pension, and they weren't, time-wise.
Right. So that's the reason why. So, in essence, it's not really going to do so much for him, except maybe, throw a Hail Mary out there with another attorney and try to get a new trial. But with so many victims, that's going to be a hard case, but it'll help his alleged wife. And I say alleged wife because, according to what he was charged with, she was like the helper.
Well, yeah, and he, keep in mind, O.J. Simpson kept his pension. That wasn't, yeah, but that was in the civil case. I don't think the Goldmans have really seen a dime in that case. The best thing that happened to them is that he tried to get his stuff back. Remember, in Las Vegas, and ended up in prison,
right,
indeterminate sentence. So that was actually something I think that was probably somewhat
and it was
gratifying.
interesting how they were connected in
Right.
the two trials.
Yeah, I mean, that he
the
wanted
95 and 2007.
Right, and he was.
Well,
I don't know. I don't know that it was their stuff, but the right to the items was theirs. From that civil verdict, and so there's some justice, if there's any justice in that case, that he was in prison for trying to get memorabilia back, so to speak. But he did keep his pension. I've got a case now in Seattle with a pedophile teacher that served time in prison, and he's keeping his pension, but not the same as Sandusky, where you're talking about that exact language, in terms of his pension and the ability to revoke it. Yeah, it feels good to revoke it. You bet, it feels like justice. The law is the law, the language is the language, and that's why there was a unanimous decision on the appeal that was in his favor.
And you mentioned you're representing a pedophile or something like that?
No, representing a victim of a pedophile.
A victim of a pedophile, but I'm seeing a lot of, and I think you would agree with me, a lot of females, teachers mostly, in the last 10 years than I've ever seen in my whole life.
I know.
I mean, women are coming out of the boat, so to speak, and they had that show To Catch a Pedophile or whatever it was called,
right.
Catch a Predator.
Predator.
They didn't even use women, and we know that Florida case with Debbie LaVey or something like that, and that was a big one that was all over. But there have been a lot of cases. I mean, I put on the news and I see plenty.
There was, I handled the Mary Kay Letourneau civil case. Remember, she was probably the first that was in the media quite a bit. It was a case that really shocked everybody. And then, after that...
Who was she with?
Vili Falau.
Was that...
They got married.
Right, okay, yes. They were on ABC a couple of weeks back.
Yeah, right. Mary Letourneau, actually he was 13, but they had 2 children together. She went to prison for 7 years. And then when she got out, they got married, and they're still married, raising the girls.
They have kids, right?
2 daughters in their teens.
Wow.
And now we've seen, like, Deborah LaFave, Deborah Rogers, many, many other cases.
Oh, yeah. The list goes on and on.
It does.
I mean, it's really interesting. We do have a caller. Let's go to the lines. She's been holding for a while.
Okay.
Let's go out to Virginia and say hello to the one and only Mary Wainwright. Good evening, Mary. Welcome to King Jordan Radio. You're on the phone with Ann Bremner. How are you?
Good evening, and we're good to talk to you guys again.
Oh, Mary, can you say that again? Your signal's a little. Yeah. Can you just repeat that?
Wanted to say good evening to everybody.
Everybody's good. Mary, okay. If you want, yeah. If you could hear us, can you try calling back on another line? I can hear you there. I just heard you before. So we have another caller. Let's try, I believe this is Sarah Kardashian, and she's in the California area. Good evening, Sarah. Hi, you're on King Jordan Radio with Ann Bremner. What's your
Hi,
question?
King. Hi, Ann.
Hi, Sarah.
Pleasure to talk to you again.
Same.
Interesting, really interesting cases tonight. Had Charlie Sheen just gone to the police department and told these people that he was being blackmailed, could all this, news frenzy been avoided? Would the police have kept it confidential? Or is that something that just couldn't be kept confidential, and maybe that's why he went public?
That's a great question, Sarah. I think...
Very good.
Yeah, they could keep things confidential until they charge somebody. And if they charge somebody, then it's public. And he wouldn't really have an ability to remain, anonymous, so to speak, There could be efforts that way, but generally criminal charges are public. But the frenzy might favor him more in terms of sentiment, of course, if he went and said, listen, he paid $10 million, supposedly, I read, to one of these women.
I heard. I guess he's blessed with a lot of money. That's all I can say. I mean,
I know.
It's a horrible thing, and then all the money that is reported that he paid, to prostitutes, and he's just got a different kind of life, and I hope he continues to do well physically.
Yes.
And I feel bad for anybody that's being blackmailed because of something that they have no control over, although I guess he could have had some control over it if he had been more cautious. But then how do I know? I mean, I'm not judging him at all. Going to the Chisholm case,
yes,
I just can't wrap myself around the fact that he was 14 and he was capable of doing this. And do you know, Anne, of any cases where it's been this heinous, where they're not charged as an adult?
No. I think that's what's going to dictate the decision to charge him as an adult when it's really horrific like that, and intentional and premeditated and gruesome and senseless. Because then you think the child or the juvenile's a monster, and they need to be contained for as long as possible.
And are they using a mental defense? Or I haven't. Oh, they are. Okay.
Yeah, but that's a tough road to hoe, as you know. I mean, you've got to show that he didn't know right from wrong, and he didn't appreciate the nature and quality of his act. I haven't gone in that much into the nature of his defense, whether he's doing, extreme emotional disturbance or straight insanity, but it's a mental defense, Sarah, and I don't know what else he's going to be able to do, or what his defense can do.
I mean, it's a horrible crime, horrible, but when it happened in 14, it just, I don't know, it was heart-wrenching. Usually if it's an adult that commits this kind of crime with so much evidence, I don't have that angst in me, but this is just horrifying. And then one more thing, and I'll let you guys take all the other callers, the Sandusky pension, and I'm glad you explained it the way you did, because I thought to myself, well, what do you mean they're getting their pension, these people? Because it's not only Sandusky. Now, Drew Peterson I think he had a hearing earlier in this year because he wants his pension.
His police pension?
And I don't know if it was...
Yeah.
Pardon me? Yeah.
His police pension,
I don't know if it was settled. Do you know if it was settled or not?
I don't know. I can look at it right now. I know Drew Peterson had some really good lawyers who got a lot of evidence excluded for that guy.
Right.
Remember?
Steve Greenberg's one of them, and he's a fascinating attorney. But my only question about Drew Peterson versus anyone else or Sandusky, supposedly in the trial, they said that he would actually be in his police car and drive up to her house, and that maybe he even killed her while he was on his shift. So if he did it on work time, then I wouldn't think he'd be able to get his pension.
Well, and that's exactly, you hit the nail on the head, Sarah. That's exactly what Sandusky was. And he didn't do it on his work time. But if Peterson did, then he doesn't get his pension. I'm just quickly looking at this on the web, and it looks like that may still be pending. I'm not sure. I've just got to...
Yeah, I think it's pending, too. I just wasn't sure myself. But anyway, great topics, and Anne, you're a wonderful guest, and King, love you, and thank you for having Anne. And I will talk to everybody soon.
Thanks, Sarah. Wonderful question.
Have a great Thanksgiving, Sarah.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving.
You too,
you
King.
calling in.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yes, absolutely. Let's try Mary again. Let's see if she has a better reception. Mary, can you hear us? Mary?
Hear me?
I
hear
heard
me?
you. Yes. Now I can hear you. How are you?
Okay, I'm outside of the Can you hear me?
You're breaking up.
Yeah, can you just...
Hello?
You're breaking up a little. Yes, you're breaking up a little. But if you could just talk a little louder, maybe I could try to understand. It's okay, but you're breaking up.
Okay. Well, hello to everyone. Okay. Hi.